All right, we're back for another episode and
There he is.
continuing on scaling your racket stringing business, 9 proven strategies. Today we're on number 8, expanding a racket stringing business geographically. I know a lot of the different points they cross over somewhat, but today I think we're just going to have some short discussion on, what you're looking for if you're going to move your business geographically and expand to another area, and we can kind of discuss that a little bit. And again, if anybody has questions, comments, or would like more information on that, just drop it in the comments when this video is posted. Be happy to answer any questions. So with that, I guess we can just kind of start talking a little bit about what that would mean, because I think a lot of the audience here has part-time string business or strings from home, or maybe a club or something like that. So I think that's kind of primarily where we would start the discussion. So Brad, you're in that situation as well, right? As a coach and as a part-time racket stringer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm in. I think I'm just over 800 rackets on the year. I think last year I did maybe around 840. So I'm looking to beat it this year, which is nice. Every year I've gone up the last 4 years. Certainly being a part-time tennis coach also has helped, as I'm able to talk to my students about their strings and different options and what they do. I find that the player. Most tennis players are very, very uneducated when it comes to the strings. They spend a lot of time on the racket and the feel of the racket and this and that, but they don't put a lot of thought or effort into selecting different strings. So it's been fun to have the opportunity to both be an instructor and also a certified master racket technician, and educate them. So yeah, so I'm kind of in that same boat as the small home business stringer.
So the first thing I think about is mobile racket stringing, right? I've seen it many years ago. I've seen people try that you have a shop, maybe a geographic area that your shop is in or that your business is currently operating in, and you want to expand to maybe surrounding markets, or you want to be able to get around your area a little bit better. So you create a way to have a mobile stringing service. And that could actually mean when you think of mobile, I'm thinking of somebody, maybe taking a van or some type of vehicle where they could actually park it somewhere and string rackets. I've seen that also happen with maybe wanting to string at tournaments.
I've done that.
You go into a parking lot and just set it up. Of course, there's lots of logistics. Can you do it? Where are you going to put it? Are you competing with any on-site? There's maybe some logistics, but if you really think outside the box, you could potentially travel the country with your van and string rackets at tournaments, play, whatever, So.
Well, that's what happens at the pro level when you were at the US Open or you were at the Australian Open stringing. There were guys that were not officially part of the tournament like you were that would set up shop in a hotel room. They know some of the players, and there's nothing the tournament can do about that. Now, I was on the other end of the spectrum. While you were at the Australian Open, I was playing satellite tournaments, which were the predecessor to the Futures tournament. Now they're called Futures. Back when I played in the early 90s, there were satellites, and you had to commit to 4 consecutive weeks of tournaments. Otherwise, it didn't count. And a lot of players, not a lot, but there were usually 1 or 2 who would bring a stringing machine. I was one of the guys that had a stringing machine. So when I was out in California, there was a series of 4 tournaments. I set up my Echelon, 2-piece with the bass and a hand crank, and I would string. And I strung, some days I would do 12, 15 rackets, and I think I was charging maybe $7. Maybe the tournament was charging $12 back in 1996. And, made a few $100s. I remember stringing a bunch of rackets for Jan Michael Gamble, who went on to be a pretty decent player on the tour. Cecil Mamet, who was the first freshman to win the NCAA title since John McEnroe. I remember stringing for him. So I got to know a lot of guys, and I did that from one tournament to the next. And now I have a cousin who was kind of a legend on the satellite circuit. And a lot of guys know my cousin. He went by Johnny Blazed. And Johnny Blaze, there were articles written about him in almost every city he would go to. They'd write an article. He was just a journeyman who would live out of his van. If there were two players who would basically walk away from a satellite tournament and make money, the winner and my cousin Johnny Blaze, because he wouldn't spend a dime. He would string for everyone. And every time there was a Chick-fil-A opening, he'd wait in line for 24 hours. So he'd eat for free at a Chick-fil-A. So he had like 7 different Chick-fil-A's he'd eat for free. So he's kind of a legend on the tour, but he made a lot of money stringing at these tournaments and stuff, So, I mean, that's a little bit to the extreme. You're looking at a home stringer, maybe wants to just go to their local club if there's a tournament, or the college or whatnot. But there are opportunities out there.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to do that, you have to really, like you were saying, you have to connect with 1 or 2 players like that are going to be your anchors.
Yes.
Because I know way back when a friend of mine and I in California, we were going to do that as well, because at that time he was stringing for Lindsay Davenport a lot and a few other players that were in Southern California. And we were thinking, I tried to convince him, come on, let's go string at the hotels, let's set up and get some of the players and do it. But he just didn't want to really do it. But yeah, it can be done if you do it right, but you have to just start, and see where it takes you. It could be kind of fun, when you're doing it at that level just for yourself. And
it taught me, it really helped. It helped my business where it is today. The fact that I strung 400 or 500 rackets at these various tournaments and stuff, it was good learning.
Mm-hmm. And, I think another, like, kind of pivoting a little bit, I think another way to maybe look at expanding your stringing business geographically would be to kind of, if you're playing tennis and you're playing at a club, or you're playing on a team, and then when that team goes and plays other teams, kind of talk to some of those other players and see if you can maybe connect with that, and kind of see if you could expand into that market and see what the competition is, see what clubs are around. It might be that you could possibly move into that geographic area too, maybe connect with a few people that are in that area, and kind of expand through them,
Yeah.
And the nice thing is when you are part-time, or you don't have a retail location, you can actually probably expand or move quicker, because you can pivot a lot easier and find drop-off places, maybe sports shops where people can drop off rackets, and then you just need to be consistent in picking them up.
Yeah, we've talked about that in the past. Going to a local Dick's Sporting Good or whatever they are, and offer to do the stringing for them, and they call you once a week. We have some rackets, or.
And if you have another way too, if you have an online presence in your area, or you just have a good online presence that reaches a lot of potential customers, you can also offer online services, because there are some geographic areas that don't really have a lot of stringers.
Right.
And sometimes it's tough for players to get their rackets strung there. Of course, it takes a little bit more work. It takes, profit-wise, you really have to make sure it's going to be feasible to do, with the shipping costs and all that. Because I know a lot of times those services complement, you buying rackets. Like a lot of the online wholesalers or retailers of tennis equipment, have online stringing usually. And of course, if you're just supplementing it with, you buy a racket from us, we'll string it for you for an extra few bucks or whatever, and then ship it to you. That makes it more profitable for them. But if you have to send it in, they have to send it back, you got to figure out if that's going to be feasible. But it is an option. I've seen people do it, and it can be successful, if you want to add that. Let's see, what else? I know this is going to be a little bit shorter video, right? But we did want to cover this. This is number 8. So we have, one more strategy after this, but, altogether, I think it kind of provides some good value if you're, thinking about, expanding your business, right?
One issue I had this week was a player who's and Babolat is kind of notorious for this. Unfortunately, is the bumper guards are very thin as far as the canal that the string sits in. And so once it wears a little bit, the string is exposed, and I've had to order, several replacement bumper guards, not the full grommet set, but I haven't been able to find where you can just buy a bumper. You got to buy the whole complete set, but I really just need the bumper guard. And I have a player whose racket, it was breaking up there. It was clearly worn. And so I took them all out, and he had ordered the new set, and it's very confusing. And the new set was for the wrong racket. It didn't fit. And then when I called 3 shops, Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Express, I forget the other one it's called, but they're all sold out. And they said, you probably won't be able to find them unless you go on eBay and of course on eBay, they're $22, $24.
Yeah.
If they had them in the shops, they're $7, $8. So, but I had to deal with that this week, and I emailed them and said, hey, look, it's 22. You want me to go ahead and order it? It's really our only option. So they just, they paid the cost for that. But
yeah, that's one of those things that, like, when the customer sometimes buys those, there's so many different racket variations.
Yeah,
that sometimes it's easy to get that wrong.
And they ordered 4 sets.
Yeah, and I've learned. Oh wow! And I've learned that before you cut out the strings, or before you even remove the old grommet bumper guard, make sure you have the right one. Because I've done that before, where I've ripped, I've taken the bumper guard off, and then to find out I actually have the wrong replacement.
That's exactly what I did.
There's no racket.
That's exactly what I did. But I knew the possibility of that being the case. But this bumper guard was so bad, and the string was totally exposed, and I knew he had 4 other rackets.
Yeah. Okay. So you were okay, but yeah.
But it almost got to the point where I couldn't even find a replacement. So then it would have been bad, because even with a worn or exposed string, there are some things you could do. I could maybe put tubing all along that top few strings, or I could have put a couple layers of head tape that might have helped a little bit. But yes.
Well, maybe that's the value nugget in today's video then. About the head guard, because
if you get a racket you love and are going to keep, order a few extra sets early before they discontinue the racket or bring out a new model.
Exactly. And like you're saying, just make sure you have the right one, and make sure that you don't cut out the strings, and see what the situation is with your customer. I mean, you can always, for a weekend player, you can always maybe loan them a racket if that's their only that's their only racket, or something like that. But yeah, it sometimes looking for grommets. I know in the past there used to be like grommet networks, and I know like the USRSA or other organizations, or even like some of the online Facebook communities have, like, what you just put your email in there. Hey, I'm looking for such and such grommet set. Does anybody have one? And sometimes you can run across it that way for some of those hard to find ones.
Yep. I see that on some Facebook pages, stringing pages. Sometimes people are looking for grommets and go here.
Yeah, and usually the ones that you find on eBay, somebody maybe got an old lot of a bunch of old, discontinued rackets, grommets, and they put them on there for like $30, $40 just for a grommet set, because it's just trying to make some profit on it and stuff.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate there, but yeah. So that is a good point, and I guess we can just end on that. So hopefully, there was some value in it for you today watching this, and the whole idea is, when you're looking to expand your business geographically, do it slow. Just connect with the tennis community, whether that's different clubs or different, know what shops are out in your area. Find some ambassadors that can, promote your business in that area that you want to go to. Just kind of hang out there, and that has worked. Mobile stringing is one way to do it. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or comments, please leave it. And with that, I will just say we'll see you next time, and we'll have one more video in this series to go.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat.
Yep. Thanks, Brad.